Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual on Firstpost, where we get you the top 50 stories from around the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin. In our top stories, Israeli warplanes carried out their most intense strikes on southern Lebanon amid escalating tensions with Hezbollah on Thursday. Hundreds of targets were struck in Lebanon after Hezbollah chief called out Israel during an address and vowed revenge. The Hezbollah chief blamed Israel for the recent detonation of pagers and walkie-talkies in Lebanon. Israel launched over 52 strikes and hit about 100 rocket launches, along with additional Hezbollah infrastructure. Hamas voiced support for Hezbollah as its chief Nasrallah promised to retaliate against Israel. The Palestinian group said Hezbollah chief's support for Gaza and Palestinians had left Israel frustrated. Hamas added that with the recent explosions in Lebanon, Israel aimed at weakening Hezbollah's stance, but failed to do so. Meanwhile, 6 Palestinians were killed and 18 sustained injuries in an IDF raid in the West Bank city of Qabatia on Thursday. Out of the 18 injured, 4 were in a critical state. The Israeli troops also destroyed infrastructure in the city. Meanwhile, the Israeli Defense Forces announced a probe after video showed its soldiers throwing bodies off a rooftop. Air carrier Delta has suspended direct flights between New York and Tel Aviv until the end of this year. Rising tensions in West Asia prompted the airline to suspend its flights to the region and to avoid affected airspaces. Earlier, Lufthansa and Air France also suspended flights to Tel Aviv, Tehran and Beirut. The White House has said that a diplomatic solution is urgently required in West Asia. It stated that a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas could lower the temperature in the region. The White House also added that U.S. President Joe Biden believed a diplomatic solution was the best way to end the West Asia conflict. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will meet U.S. President Joe Biden and his deputy Kamala Harris on the 26th of September. He will talk to both leaders in separate meetings. Zelensky has said that he will also share a victory plan with the U.S. leaders to end the war with Russia. He also plans to meet former U.S. President Donald Trump during his visit. U.S. President Joe Biden is all set to host the leaders of India, Australia and Japan at his Delaware home this weekend. He will be formally bidding farewell to the Quad Group. Biden voluntarily chooses his hometown of Wilmington for the summit, and he will be holding one-on-one meetings with the leaders. Biden will speak with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on Friday, and on Saturday he will meet with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. And the race to the White House continues to remain heated. A latest set of polls shows that while the race remains a toss-up nationally, in the battleground state of Pennsylvania, Kamala Harris holds an edge over Donald Trump. It shows Kamala Harris has a 4 percentage point lead in Pennsylvania. The polls, however, find that Harris has failed to seize a decisive advantage in the race so far. And French President Emmanuel Macron called for the de-escalation between Lebanon and Israel. In a video message posted on social media, Macron said that Lebanon cannot live in fear of an imminent war. He added that the nation must opt for a diplomatic path during this conflict situation. Macron also urged the political sides in Lebanon to appoint a president to take the country's leadership ahead. And France's Prime Minister Michel Barnier on Thursday proposed a list of new cabinet members to President Emmanuel Macron. As per reports, the Minister Delegate for Europe of France, Jean-Noël Barrot, has been proposed as the Foreign Minister, while Bruno Retailleau, the head of the Republicans in France's upper house, is being named for Interior Ministry. Now, this comes amid a political deadlock in the country after snap elections in July left a hung assembly. In India, the junior doctors in West Bengal state have announced to partially end their protest. This comes after Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee accepted their demand for the removal of senior police and health officials. They said they will end their protest after a march to the CBI office on the 20th of September. The protest had begun for the justice of a 31-year-old trainee doctor. She was raped and murdered at the R.G. Kar Medical College and Hospital in Kolkata on the 9th of August. A massive row has erupted over sweets offered to devotees in India's Tirupati Balaji temple in the southern state of Andhra Pradesh. A laboratory report suggested that the Indian sweet given to devotees contained animal fat. In India, devotees are given sweets after they offer prayers in temples. Now, the report stated that the sweet offered at the Tirupati temple contained ingredients rendered from the fatty tissue of a pig. The state chief minister has blamed the previous government for using substandard material. However, the opposition YSRCP reacted sharply and called the allegations malicious. And the vaccination campaign against Mpox in the Democratic Republic of Congo is set to begin on the 2nd of October. So far, the country has registered more than 24,000 cases of the virus. Officials said the campaign will last for 10 days. The Democratic Republic of Congo is at the epicenter of the Mpox outbreak and has caused 789 deaths since January. And on to some climate news. Peru continues to reel under raging wildfires. According to Peruvian authorities, the fires have now destroyed crops and impacted at least 7 archaeological sites. This comes a day after the Peruvian President Dina Boluarte imposed emergency in 3 regions for 60 days. Peru's government has deployed 12 helicopters to douse the blazes that have claimed 16 lives so far. The Amazon lake in Brazil is drying up amid the worst drought on record. The receding water levels in the lake and rising temperatures are affecting freshwater dolphins. The drying lakes are bringing boat traffic and animals into close proximity, which is affecting their population. And last year, more than 200 of the endangered species died in Lake Tefe. Continuing with Brazil, environmental activists have raised concerns over the critically low level of the Miranda River. It is one of the main tributaries of the Paraguay River, responsible for the formation of the Pantanal tropical wetland area. According to environmentalists, the water levels in some stretches of the river have gone below 50 centimeters, and earlier the water levels in those areas was more than 5 meters. And Ecuador's government has implemented countrywide nightly power cuts. The step follows a severe drought in the country, marking its worst in the last 61 years. The plunging water levels have led to a power crisis in Ecuador due to its effect on hydroelectric plants. And Storm Boris has hit northern Italy, bringing high winds and heavy rains that have led to devastating floods. The floods triggered evacuations in the Emilia-Romagna region, and the authorities have closed schools and suspended rail services. Now, the Emilia-Romagna was also hit by widespread floods last year. And Hungarians are bracing for floods in the capital city of Budapest. The citizens gathered to build defenses along the river Danube as its water level continued to rise. The river is expected to peak near record levels. Hungarian authorities have closed tourist spots at Margaret Island, and this as parts of Central Europe witnessed severe floods in recent days. And according to scientists, climate change has intensified the floods in Europe. The warmer and moister atmosphere amplifies extreme rainfall, leading to severe flooding. This as the worst floods in at least 2 decades have hit Central Europe, leaving a trail of destruction and killing at least 23 people. On to business and tech news now. The US stock market soared to record highs yesterday. Analysts say investors were cheering the Federal Reserve's aggressive interest rate cut. The U.S. Central Bank has lowered its interest rate by 0.5%, citing low inflation and rising unemployment. Yesterday, the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 indices jumped over 1% to a new all-time high. Meanwhile, the Nasdaq rose 2.5%. Meanwhile, politics around the Federal Reserve's rate cuts continues. Yesterday, U.S. President Joe Biden said that he expects more interest rate cuts in the future. He called the Federal Reserve's decision good news for consumers. Meanwhile, Biden's former rival and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump called the Fed's decision a political move. Trump said that it would have been right if the Fed had only cut interest rates by 0.25%. And the European Union and China have agreed to continue talks over proposed tariffs on Chinese electric cars. The talks come days before the EU is set to vote on high tariffs that it has proposed to impose on Chinese EVs. Earlier, EU proposed higher tariffs on Chinese EV imports, saying they benefit from Chinese government subsidies. EU officials say that their probe into unfair Chinese subsidies will continue. Meanwhile, China has vowed to respond to any European tariffs with necessary measures. And European automakers have asked the European Union to take urgent action. This as data shows car sales in the bloc fell to a 3-year low in August. Data from the European Automobile Manufacturers Association shows that new car sales in the EU fell by 18.3% last month. Declining electric vehicle sales in big markets like Germany, France, and Italy have been blamed for this slump. And the UK government's fiscal deficit soared to a record $85.4 billion in August this year. This is the highest level of public sector deficit in the country since records began. Now, by the end of last month, the UK's total deficit was 100% of its gross domestic product. The borrowing in August also surpassed the new Labour government's expectations. The data is a significant blow to Keir Starmer-led government, which will present its first budget next month. An American sportswear company, Nike, has announced the departure of its CEO, John Donohue. Now, he will be stepping down on the 31st of October after working with the firm for over 3 years. Nike has called back its veteran executive, Elliott Hill, to take over the CEO position. Now, Hill worked for Nike for 32 years before retiring in 2020 as the head of the Consumer and Marketplace division. This comes as the sportswear firm has been undergoing an overhaul amid falling sales. And tech workers of American newspaper The New York Times have announced a strike. Yesterday, the workers' union, called the Times Tech Guild, voted in favor of the strike. The union represents about 600 New York Times employees, comprising software engineers and others. The union has been in talks with the firm over pay raises for better working conditions. And American chocolate bar maker Hershey has announced layoffs. The firm says it's cutting less than 1% of its 20,000 employees. The move is a part of the candy bar maker's organizational overhaul announced earlier this year. In February, Hershey had announced layoffs to cut costs amid skyrocketing cocoa prices. Meanwhile, the smartphone chip maker Qualcomm is planning to lay off workers in the U.S. city of San Diego. The firm will cut 226 jobs starting mid-November. The layoffs are expected to impact Qualcomm employees at 16 facilities across San Diego. Last year, the chipmaker laid off more than 1,250 employees. And Brazil's top court has fined Elon Musk's social media firm X and his other companies. This after X briefly went online in the country despite a nationwide ban. X said that the restoration of services was unintended. However, the Brazilian court has fined the platform $920,000 for the breach, calling its actions a trick. It also fined Musk's other company, the internet satellite firm Starlink. And moving on to sports news, and we start with cricket. India were bowled out for 376 in the first innings of the opening test match against Bangladesh. India's top scorer was Ravichandran Ashwin with 113 runs. Other contributors to India's knock were Ravindra Jadeja, who hit 86, and Yashavi Jaiswal, who scored 56 runs. For Bangladesh, Hassan Mahmood picked up 5 wickets and gave away only 83 runs. Now, Mahmood also made a record during the India-Bangladesh first test. He became the first Bangladeshi bowler to take 5 test wickets on Indian soil. The pacer bowled out key Indian players like Rohit Sharma, Shubman Gill, Virat Kohli, and Ravichandran Ashwin on day 1 of the match. He completed his 5 on day 2 of the game by dismissing Jasprit Bumrah. Meanwhile, Australia beat England in the first one-day international match by 7 wickets. England batted first and posted 315 runs in 49.4 overs. Australia's successful run chase was headed by Travis Head. He scored an unbeaten 154 off 129 balls. Australia comfortably reached 317 for 3 wickets with 6 overs to spare. England now trail the 5-match ODI series against Australia 1-0. And former Sri Lanka player and cricket coach Dulip Samarawira has been banned by Australia Cricket for 20 years for inappropriate behaviour with a female player. Samarawira had coached women's teams in Australia. His most noteworthy stint was with the Melbourne Stars. In football, Australia's head coach of the men's team, Graham Arnold, has resigned. He said the decision was quote-unquote best for the nation. Arnold has been coaching Australia since 2018. His decision to quit comes after Australia's poor start to the 2026 World Cup qualifiers. And Barcelona started their Champions League campaign with a 1-2 loss against Monaco. Barca were reduced to a 10-man squad after their defender Eric Garcia was sent off with a red card. Monaco capitalized on this opportunity to secure the win. Barcelona's only goal scorer was 17-year-old winger Lamine Yamal. And footballer J. Emmanuel Thomas was fired from his club Greenock Morton FC. He was dismissed after being charged with plotting a drug import attempt to the UK. Thomas was arrested at his home near Glasgow after UK law enforcement agency discovered drugs worth over $700,000 at an England airport in suitcases. His lawyer has strongly denied his involvement in any such case. Now, tennis stars swapped rackets for tuxedos, strutting the black carpet in Berlin ahead of the Laver Cup. The event saw rivals turn teammates indulge in some cheeky banter. Laver Cup is a tennis championship that pits Team Europe versus Team World. Berlin is hosting it for the first time. Alexander Zverev is representing Team Europe. And Shohei Ohtani became the first baseball player ever to hit 50 home runs and steal 50 bases in one season. He achieved the feat during a Dodgers game against the Miami Marlins, where they won 20-4. Ohtani hit 3 home runs and raised his steals total to 51 in the game. This historic milestone cemented his legendary status in MLB history. And MotoGP will return to Hungary for the first time in 33 years. A race will be organized at the Balaton Park circuit starting next season. Hungary last hosted the MotoGP in 1990 and 1992. The race is set for the weekend of the 22nd to the 24th of August in 2025. In entertainment news, rapper Sean Combs, who is awaiting trial in a racketeering and sex trafficking case, has reportedly been put on a suicide watch in Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center. It was done as a precautionary measure as the rapper's mental state is unclear. Sean Combs was arrested on the 16th of September after a grand jury indictment. And American rapper and singer Queen Latifah's biopic is under development. Latifah is producing the film herself. The biopic is being produced by US-based entertainment companies. They plan on making other films about hip-hop icons like Queen Latifah, and further details are awaited on these developing projects. In a virtual rally in Michigan, Oprah Winfrey interviewed US presidential candidate Kamala Harris. They discussed topics like immigration, abortion, and cost of living. Along with Winfrey, a few other celebs like Meryl Streep, Julia Roberts, and Chris Rock also joined the chat. The interview was streamed on Harris's campaign YouTube channel. And 1993's Ramayana, The Legend of Prince Rama, will release in theaters again. The anime film will be available for the Indian audience from the 18th of October. The story is the film is based on the Hindu epic of Ramayana. And Netflix has released the teaser for the season 2 of the hit series Squid Games. The video shared at the annual Geekend Weekend fan event. The teaser begins with the events that took place at the end of season 1, and it shows contestants back in the game in their uniforms eyeing the massive cash prize. Squid Game season 2 will debut on the 26th of December. And Spanish actor Esther Acebo will be seen playing the lead in the film In the End, Everything Will Be Fine. The film aims to capture the essence of the stupidity of humanity. Acebo rose to fame after playing the character of Stockholm in Money Heist. And the season 7 of Black Mirror will see a handful of new faces. The show has roped in actors like Emma Corrin, Paul Giamatti, and Awkwafina for its upcoming season. According to reports, the show's production will begin later this year. The show had debuted in 2011. And actor Sebastian Stan, who will be seen as Donald Trump in the upcoming film The Apprentice, says, and I quote, "I think he is a lot smarter than people want to say about him." The actor watched videos of the former US president on loop to prepare for the role. He had watched over 500 videos of Trump from different years, which helped him with his speech patterns. And the film will release on the 11th of October. English actor Florence Pugh says that body-shaming comments are really painful. She says it hurts when people that she reads have been nasty about her confidence or weight, and Pugh says it never feels good to go through the comments. She has been trolled on the internet several times over her sartorial choices. And actor Eva Mendes says that acting is something that she will always love. She has been away from the big screen for almost a decade now, and Mendes said that there are so many things that she won't do now, like violent or sexual scenes. She admits that her mindset has changed since having children. Mendes is married to Barbie star Ryan Gosling and has 2 children. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Fast and Factual. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.